Reduce the size of cabinet. That's what Democratic Labour Party stalwart and former Attorney General Sir Frederick Smith would do if he had his way. Sir Frederick, the guest speaker at the DLP's weekly luncheon, said this is one way government could help ease the burden on its finances.
I will look at the ministry, see how I can redistribute them. Those who are independent and can support themselves and have professions, then they would go. If they're producing, no, but if they're not producing as much as I think, then they would go. Those who have professions so that they wouldn't suffer as a result of not drawing the money as a minister. I don't want to call names, but I have an idea, clear idea who I would send home and cut down the ministry. 18 ministers for a little country like this is too much.
Sir Frederick celebrates his 90th birthday in July and says this may well be his last public speaking engagement. He took time to reaffirm his commitment to the DLP, saying it remains the party that champions the cause of the people. Sir Frederick says up to now he's not heard the opposition offer alternatives to address the current economic challenges.
I feel sure should interact more, but not talk everything. Because let me tell you something. We have built in this thing some icons. Arthur is now the authority on economics. Barr was an economist too, and Barr brought this country to independence. But how can anybody sell the two things that help us in this country, and Tom Adams, you've got to give him credit for. Two things help us: the bank, which we had, our own bank, which could control the banks in Barbados. We ain't got a bank in Barbados at all. Trinidad got banks, Canada got banks, you name it, America had banks. We ain't got one because we sold ours to Trinidad. IBCL, we sell it to Bermuda.
Hundreds of Barbadians have responded to a job fair hosted by international recruitment company Diamond Global at the Lord Erskine Sandiford Centre starting today. Some of them, uncertain about their futures, turned up hoping to find steady employment. Michelle Arthur has more in this report.
The opportunity has raised the hopes of quite a few people, especially those finding it difficult to get a job. Some see the recruitment initiative as a stepping stone towards something better.
It will be a new experience and there will be many things that you will learn as you are on the job. It is whether the challenge motivates you, and I think that for motivated people it will be an excellent developmental opportunity.
Many of the applicants thought the presentation was filled with useful information. The areas where opportunities exist include hospitality, food service and construction, among others.
I think the show is actually a good way forward for the Barbadian citizens to take a try at jobs in Canada and what's not overseas. I would like a bit more on the skilled side to show us for the skilled traders in Barbados, which would be better for electricians and technicians and that kind of stuff, engineers who can't really find a job now. But otherwise than that, the show was a pretty good show.
With 3,000 public sector workers expected to be sent home soon in what are already difficult economic circumstances, some young people are taking the leap of faith.
It's kind of like a save, especially for a lot of Barbadian people, considering that there's supposed to be a lot of job losses and stuff like that.
Applicants can be between the ages of 21 and 45, so many see this as a once-in-a-lifetime chance.
My hopes and dream, even if we don't get the candidates, to build a life that is sustainable for other people as well. We call it a sustainable ecosystem, because at the end of the day you want a legacy to live on. You don't just want, you make money and you got a house. So now I'm 50, what are you gonna be doing? You know what I mean? So you want something a legacy basically.
In fact, the Vice President of Diamond Global Recruitment Inc. is very pleased with the work ethic of Barbadians hired during a previous recruitment drive.
So far I've heard wonderful things. They're exceptionally happy with their fellow Canadians. They're really happy about their living arrangements, and people seem to be very, very positive. Their outlook is strong. Once people get to Canada, the jobs are great and they're really in such a wide demand that I think they start to feel really appreciated from day one.
Reports indicate that Barbadians have easily adjusted to the conditions and have been quite successful. Michelle Arthur, CBC News.
Public sector workers are concerned about the system that will determine who will go home at the end of this month. This was one of the highlights of a meeting convened by the Barbados Workers' Union last evening. It was called to update workers about recent discussions with government over pending layoffs. Speaking to the media after that meeting, BWU General Secretary Sir Roy Trotman said it was mainly for employees of statutory corporations. Sir Roy said the union was devastated about the possible fallout of so many people going home at one time. He said it would have implications for a wide range of public services from welfare to healthcare. The BWU boss has also reiterated that striking is not an option at this time.
As soon as we have got a report on what action we are taking with the government puts its proposals on the table. Our executive will meet to discover what they will finally determine. But on current information, I am not inclined to advise the president who is here, the treasurer who is here, the three officers, or the executive council itself, that would be the best course of action in the circumstances.
Sir Roy has also responded to the Barbados Employers Confederation's call to have been included in the talks with government.
How does the Employers Confederation fit into an exercise where another employer is discussing his staff with the trade union movement? If tomorrow we have a meeting that involves the Costas or that involves, you name it, banks, is the BEC saying that they should be involved when the BWU sits down with the management of banks bureaus? The social partnership meets when the social partnership has a social partnership issue.
Swift action by fire officials averted what could have been a major disaster when fire threatened to destroy businesses and homes in Tweedside Road, St. Michael, early this morning. Shane Seeley was on the scene.
Scores of residents on Tweedside Road were awoken by loud explosions from this structural fire which occurred sometime around 4 o'clock this morning. I arrived on the scene first and called it in at about 4:15. Fire officials were quickly on the scene and were able to contain the blaze to what is a derelict structure. However, there was some disruption as power was cut to some of the immediate houses in the area. Now, we spoke to one of the top fire officials on the scene. Here's what he had to say.
On arrival, they saw one building already engulfed in flames and 2 other buildings were also affected. So at this present time, we are carrying out mopping up procedures after we have been able to contain the fire, just the one that has been completely destroyed.
Are you at all concerned about maybe that this could be an act of arson? There's so many derelict buildings in recent times. A lot of these fires have been derelict buildings.
We will have to carry out investigation, and after investigation with the police, we will be able to come to a concrete conclusion of what most likely may have been the cause of this fire.
A crew from the Barbados Light and Power Company also had to be called in as power lines melted in the heat. They were busy into the day trying to restore power to affected customers. Shane Seeley, CBC News.
And a close call for the Leicester Vaughan Secondary as a bushfire threatened to breach the premises of that school. Smoke from the blaze forced officials to close the school early, sending students home. Principal Sandra Goodrich spoke to CBC News.
Well, this afternoon, sometime just after 1, we had a threat, definitely, with a grass fire east of the school compound. And the school was engulfed in smoke for a bit, and it got a little bit better, but then it got worse later on. So we would have dismissed eventually. We got permission from the Ministry of Education. In light of several asthmatics being on the school compound, we would have gotten permission to close about 1:45.
Thousands of suitable applicants continue to be turned away from the Barbados Community College for lack of space. Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Senator Harry Husbands, says both the BCC and the Samuel Jackman Prescott Polytechnic are packed to capacity. While at Roland Edwards Primary today for the launch of a behavioral program, Senator Husbands said this is still a worrying concern for his ministry. In 2011, government announced plans for an amalgamation of the 2 institutions to be constructed in the north of the island, but Senator Husband says although a new facility is important, it cannot be expected immediately.
The bottom line is that whether in the north or whatever, we are challenged to create more spaces for the community college and for the polytechnic. And that has to be done, both from the simple point of view of the number of people applying, and also from the point of view of the value and importance of technical and vocational education.
The Barbados Community College's early application process began on December the 9th of last year and ends on February the 28th. Efforts to raise funds to construct a multi-purpose sports facility at the Queen's College School in St. James have been given a boost. It's being done through an event called An Evening of Elegance, held under the patronage of Governor-General Sir Elliot Belgrave. Principal Dr. David Brown told a media conference efforts to raise the just over $800,000 needed for that facility have been going slowly. The aim, he says, is to complete the complex by the end of the year. Dr. Brown explains that it will be more than just a place for physical education.
I am convinced that we could enhance the delivery education and improve our performance in sports and extracurricular activities with a sports facility. Notice Ms. Gittins constantly say facility. It is more than a pavilion. It would have in it a gym, an area for aerobics, a staff point for teachers. It will have an area for the conducting of the theoretical aspects of sports.
Sugar officials want to start this year's harvest on Monday, the 24th of February, with steam trials set for the week before. And the projection is that the 2014 crop will produce slightly above last year's, when 17,423 tons of sugar were made. Peter Thorne has the story.
This year, sugar officials are predicting a yield of just over 18,000 tons of sugar from just over 188,000 tons of cane. 2014 will be the first time Barbados will be using a single factory, Port Vale, while Andrews is rebuilt as a multi-purpose factory for the future. The crop is expected to run for about 16 weeks, with the harvest finishing around the middle of June. On November 26 last year, Port Vale was hit by a fire and the factory was without power until early January. CBC understands that work is now being done to repair and correct the damage from the fire, along with other maintenance work on the factory. Last year, Barbados made one shipment to the European Union of just under 15,000 tons of sugar, with most of the remaining 3,000 tons being used for local consumption. Peter Thorne, CBC News.